Fact check: how much does illegal immigration cost? Not nearly as much as Trump claims. As President Donald Trump pushed Congress this week he demanded for his border wall, part of his pitch was based the false claim that illegal immigration costs the country hundreds of billions of dollars. Shelling out $5 billion for his promised wall along the U.S.-Mexico border would be a pittance in comparison, he suggested repeatedly. The wall would pay for itself, he argued. Earlier in December, he was $250 billion per year. On December 18, he put the cost at more than $200 billion per year. At a bill signing event on the White House on Thursday, he said, "Illegal immigration costs our nation $275 billion a year. Illegal immigration costs the United States more than $200 billion a year. How was this allowed to happen? Illegal immigration costs the United States more than $200 billion a year. How was this allowed to happen? What are the facts behind the economic impact of immigrants?" We checked his figures with immigration and tax policy experts across the political spectrum, who said he was exaggerating, at best. "That $200 billion figure does seem inflated to me," said Randy Capps, Director for Research for U.S. Programs at the Nonpartisan Migration Policy Institute. "A little high," said Robert Rector, a senior research fellow with the Heritage Foundation. "It sounds extraordinarily high to me," said Meg Wee, Deputy Director at the Nonpartisan Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy, ITEP. "Frankly absurd," David Desegard-Calic, the Deputy Director of the Nonpartisan Fiscal Policy Center, told NBC News. Conservative groups like the Heritage Foundation have sought to put a price tag on illegal immigration amid lobbying efforts against legalization, but none have pegged it as high as Trump's estimate. Rector said pegged the cost of undocumented immigrants, the cost of services received minus their tax contributions, was about $54 billion a year. And precise cost is nearly impossible to ascertain, many experts said. That's in part because undocumented immigrants operate within the shadows, leaving their full fiscal contributions, and use of taxpayer-funded resources, at least somewhat unknown. It's really hard to calculate anyone's net cost or net benefit. We all use all kinds of services, from roads to military protection. How do we apportion what part of that is something I or you or an immigrant use? Said Calic. Overall, there is a broad misunderstanding of how much undocumented immigrants contribute to America's balance sheets, and what taxpayer-funded benefits they receive, the experts interviewed by NBC News said. Undocumented immigrants are incredible contributors to our economy and are not eligible for public benefits that people think they come here for, we said. Of the nation's undocumented immigrants are believed to be working under fake Social Security numbers, which means they are paying taxes and into Social Security. The tip from undocumented immigrants. We added that undocumented immigrants are also not eligible for so they're taxed at higher rates than similar low-income Americans. Capps said that undocumented immigrants also pay taxes in other ways, paying sales taxes on items they purchase, and funding property taxes through rent payments, too. Meanwhile, undocumented immigrants are not eligible for Social Security and the vast majority of taxpayer-funded welfare programs like food stamps and cash assistance, according to Capps, the expert with the Migration Policy Institute. There are some notable exceptions. Many receive medical care through emergency rooms and some undocumented immigrants are able to receive taxpayer-funded benefits through the Women, Infants, and Children program, which helps provide food and formula for low-income pregnant and breastfeeding mothers and young children. The biggest costs to taxpayers, experts told NBC News, come from public education, which all students to receive regardless of immigration status. Researchers and advocates are split on whether it's fair to view the education and welfare of U.S. citizen children born to undocumented immigrants as part of the costs of undocumented immigrants, but most say it's worth considering at least. Rector said it was a big factor in his estimate. Public education is where the real big cost comes in, Capps said. The amount of taxes that the parents pay on their earnings, that they pay through property taxes, pass through on their rent, it's not going to be as much as is spent on public education for their kids and food stamps for their kids. Still, Capps added, second-generation immigrants, the U.S.-born children of undocumented immigrants, often go on to do far better than their parents and can boost the American economy. They'll be paying it back over the long run. Some of that cost, particularly like public schooling, pays for itself, Capps said. Some people will just focus on how much more unauthorized immigrants cost than they're paying, but it ignores the broader economic picture. Calic said the debate over costs was not relevant to the necessary fiscal conversations the country is having, particularly in a country with citizens that operates on a net negative, running on a deficit. Fundamentally, I think it's the wrong question. The right question for undocumented immigrants and any group is, are they paying their fair share of taxes and getting their fair share of service? Kallich said. You're talking about people who work for very low wages and are excluded from nearly all social services. It takes a real act of will to say they're exploiting us. Jane C. Tim is a political reporter and fact-checker for NBC News.